All right, I'm going to be going over how to use the imaginary mode on your calculator. I know some of my Algebra 2 students aren't going to be very happy when they see this, that this was available to them, but I'm okay with that. First thing we have to do is go into our imaginary mode. That's found right here. We press mode, and you can see I already made the change. Your default setting is going to be real, and we're going to try to put this into imaginary. Now I'm going to just show you real quick, when you're in real, which you can see right now I am, if I were to type in the square root of -1, it's going to say error, non-real answer. Well, we actually want it to accept a non-real answer, so I'm going to go into mode, and I go down here and I put it on imaginary. Now if I do that same calculation, second enter, and hit enter, notice it gives me I. How great is that? So let's look. It will do some minor calculations for you. So what is the value of I to the third? And just real quick, so for this problem, if we were doing this, where's my pen here? I'm having trouble finding me. I'm just not going to write it. I to the third we know is equal to the square root of -1 times itself 3 times. To the third. Notice it says -I. And we can even go faster. If you hit the second button down here next to the decimal, if you look real close, there's a little I there. So we have I to the third is -I. Now I know what some of you were thinking. You said, oh, there was a problem like this on the review. Once it gets past a certain amount, your answers start coming back a little bit different. So you still need to have a firm grip of what you're doing. Let me help you see where this would be a problem. See this problem, we did this as on our review. You do still have to have an understanding, because after a certain point, our answers come back a little bit confusing. So I'm not going to go over that. I will show you how we can use it for some other problems though, and I think you'll find this useful. Let's take a look. This is from the California State Test on Algebra 2, which I'm sure will be similar to what we take the Keystone next year or the following year. If I is square root -1, then 4I times 6I. Now if we were to do this problem, you would multiply, and you'd remember that the square root of -1 squared is -1, so we'd get 24 times -1, or -24. Let's see if the calculator can do it a little faster. I type it exactly as it appears. The calculator knows the parentheses mean multiply, and there's my answer, -24. Let's try another one. Now wait a second. Let me see here. Can I do this? Let's see. I go 40 plus 8I minus 10I minus 2I squared. That gives me 40 minus 2I minus 2. And just like the last problem, I have this square root -1 squared, which is -1. So this actually becomes 40 plus 2 minus 2I. Answer is 42. Actually, excuse me, that should be plus 2I. There's no way the calculator could have helped me on this problem. Second decimal. I don't need to type times. The calculator understands. Whoa, how about that? Now, what did I do wrong here? Why did it say minus 2I? Let's see here, I had a minus 2I squared. That should have made that plus 2. Oh. Actually caught a mistake. Good job, I function on the calculator. Alright, so it's -2I. Wow, this is handy. All right, let's keep going. What is an equivalent form? Now, if you remember, we have to use the conjugate for this. And we're going to basically make a difference of squares in the bottom and multiply the top by that, because we're in essence multiplying by 1 here. All right, so I get 2 times 3 minus I, and this is a difference of squares, so I get 9 minus I squared, 6 minus 2I. Again, this is 9 minus -1, so we get 10. I'm going to simplify that a little bit more. Out of the top, I could take a 2. And out of the bottom, I could also take a 2. So I have 3 minus I over 5. Okay, so I see that my answer is B. Here's how the calculator could help me. I'm going to type in the original expression. Now, you have to know how to use parentheses. Notice that if I were to type this in, what it's actually going to read that as is 2/3 plus I, and that's not what our original expression is. So you have to be very careful when you're typing this in to check your answers that you're using it correctly. All right, so I'm trying to drag this wrong answer out of my way. Grab it. I want to grab it. All right, sorry for the delay. Okay, so again, I'm going to go back here. I'm going to use second insert and insert the correct parentheses. And I'm going to hit enter. So I get 0.6 minus 0.2i. Now, if you go down here, you can see that's exactly what I had, because 3 over 5 minus I over 5 is the same as 0.6 minus 1/5 is 0.2i. Now, how does this help? Well, I did all my work and I said that this was my answer. So let's see. Is 3 minus I divided by 5 the same? And it is. So my answer is correct. The other place this is very helpful is when you're testing solutions. So we had this one on our review, and we moved the 64 to the other side, so we can solve by taking the square root. We take the square root of both sides, we get x equals plus or minus, and then we break that up into -1 and square root 64. Square root of -1 is our I, square root of 64 is our 8. We're going to clean this up, so it is plus or minus 8i. So this is what I believe my solution should be. I can actually test that now. I'm going to use the store function, and I'm going to go store, excuse me, I'm going to go 8i, type it in, store, and store that as x. And again, if you don't know how to use the store function, I recommend you watch that video. I'll actually demonstrate the test function as well. If you haven't watched that video, I would recommend that. So anytime I see x, the calculator is going to give me 8i, which is my first answer. So I'm going to type in x squared plus 64, and I got 0. That's beautiful. I'm going to store the other answer, which is -8i, and store that as x. And second enter my way back, x squared plus 64, 0. So I can actually even test my answers for that, all right, which is pretty outstanding. Okay, the next video I'm going to do is pretty in-depth coverage of y equals, how to format your tables, your windows, how to calculate intersects, values, zeros, and roots. Good luck on your finals.